Morning, everyone. The House continues its focus on jobs and the people's priorities, from real entitlement reform to new tools to fight human trafficking. We're getting things done for the American people. That said, if the president would work with us, I think we'd get a lot more done. This week, we passed an energy bill that the president has threatened to veto to protect EPA's power. And we're finalizing a defense bill that the president has threatened to veto to protect his plan to bring terrorists to American soil. On Benghazi, the Select Committee continues its efforts to hold the administration accountable. By refusing to comply with all relevant requests for documents, Secretary Clinton and the State Department are actually prolonging this investigation. And because the State Department, their refusal to comply, the committee has called Secretary Kerry's Chief of Staff to testify next week. Listen, 4 Americans lost their lives in this terrorist attack. Their families and fellow citizens deserve to see all of the facts. It's not too much to ask, nor, frankly, is it too much to expect from our government. On Iran, we've come to learn about 2 secret side deals regarding the regime's nuclear program. These side deals pertain to key issues, such as Iran's past nuclear activities and access to the Parchin military facility. Congress and the American people have a right and an obligation to review these side deals. And we sent a letter to the president asking his administration to make sure that those documents are available for Congress and the American people to review. Well, one way we know that this is a bad deal is because the more we learn, the more questions we have. You know, is America safer with a deal that provides the world's biggest state sponsor of terror with more than $100 billion in cash? Is America safer with a deal that allows Iran to evade inspectors for at least 24 days and possibly longer? Is America safer with a deal that lifts the embargo on ballistic missiles? And is America safer with a deal where after 10 years, Iran will have an industrialized nuclear program? Will America be safer? If it's even a question, I think it's a bad deal. Lastly, the recent shooting of a young woman in California highlights a serious problem in our immigration enforcement system. Because while terrible people do terrible things, this tragedy was preventable. And the fact is, some cities decide to ignore our laws, and not only is that wrong, but it's clearly dangerous as well. The House is acting today to put state and local officials on notice that will no longer allow them to decide how and when to enforce our nation's laws. And I call upon the Obama administration to follow suit. Stop covering up for these sanctuary cities and enforce the laws that are there to protect the American people.
Speaker, so I know you sent your letter to the White House here, but what exactly do you obviously want to see what the documents say here, but that could possibly blow up the deal, number one. Number two, there's a history of other types of pacts where there have been side arrangements which have not been privy to the adjudicating bodies. There is precedent for this.
When you look at the Iran Review Act that the president signed into law, it requires the administration to turn over all of the documents pertaining to the agreement. In my view, that would include these documents as well.
Without the support of Democrats, what can you really do to block the Iran deal?
Well, I think there's a lot of tools at our disposal, but clearly the first focus is going to be on the review of the deal and a vote that I expect will occur in September. That's the best shot, best place to get it done.
What kind of tools, though, can you use? Because they said they can stop the veto-proof majorities.
Well, they think they can. We'll see. Yes, ma'am.
By September 30th, the House needs to pass a bill to fund HHS for fiscal year 2016. Will that law, whether it's a standalone appropriations or a CR, fund Planned Parenthood?
Listen, the Planned Parenthood issue is under review by 2 of our committees. Listen, I've seen these 2 videos. They're gruesome, and I think they're awful. That's why the Energy and Commerce Committee and Judiciary Committee are doing an investigation. I expect that we will have hearings And the more we learn, the more it will educate our decisions in the future.
Mr. Speaker, House Democrats today are introducing legislation called the Equality Act, which would amend the Civil Rights Act to bar discrimination against LGBT people in all areas of civil rights law. Are you aware of this bill, and would you be open to bringing it up for a vote in the House floor?
I've not seen any details on this, but I'll take a look at it. Yes, sir.
The sanctuary cities bill that's going to be voted on today, some Democrats have taken a calling that the Donald Trump Act. Do you think this is an example of maybe how his candidacy might be distracting from some issues that your party is
We have
interested
a horrible tragedy that was preventable. Cities do not have the right to ignore federal laws that require them to incarcerate people who commit serious felonies.
Regarding the appropriations process, when the Senate was taken by Republicans, you went out of your way to say that there wasn't going to be a shutdown, there wasn't going to be a debt ceiling fight, and yet we seem to be headed toward the possibility of those two things by the end of the year.
No, we're not.
So what are your plans in terms of a CR? For how long and at what levels? Assuming you want to do a CR.
We'll see. Jake?
Based on what you know at this point, are you going to use the appropriations process to gut Planned Parenthood's funding?
There's an investigation underway, and I expect that there will be hearings. And as that process develops, we'll make decisions based on the facts. But let's get the facts first. Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. Can you just go back to September 30th, and can you give us any hint of how the appropriation process might be able to avoid a shutdown threat?
Well, listen, the Democrats in the Senate have blocked any appropriations from coming to the Senate floor. And while we've done 6 7/8 of our appropriation bills, it's pretty clear, given the number of days we're going to be here in September, that we're going to have to do a CR of some sort. And but no decision has been made about that. We'll deal with it in September when we get back. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, did the Republicans do their due diligence on the Iran deal, or have you really opposed this just from the start?
Listen, I've voiced my concerns about these discussions for over a year. And I'll just take the administration's own guidelines that they pointed out as they were going into these negotiations. And they violated every one of their own guidelines. I just don't see how this does anything to keep Americans safer. Yes.
Should the Senate pass its highway bill, what happens next when it comes to the House? Will the House take it up, or is this going to be kind of like a game of chicken?
The House has passed a responsible bill to fund our highway program for the next 5 months. There's a lot of concern being raised by our committee chairman and others about the policy that's contained in the bill the Senate is considering. But we don't know what that bill is going to look like until they pass it. And until they do, I think I'll reserve judgment on how we'll proceed. Thanks.
Thank you.